So today we're going to be looking at this duct taped Herculite style door here. We got some problems on that. I'm going to pull the door and see if we can replace that mechanism.
Alrighty, so here we're going to make sure that we have two people. Anytime you use the suction cups or glazer's mitts would be the proper term for that. And you're going to be moving one of these big glass doors or pulling it or laying it down so you can operate on it and fix it and do a repair. It's a very, very good idea to make sure you have two people. Here is the top hinge. We're showing how the set screws come from the back side here. Once you release those set screws, there is an additional screw on top. Once you release that screw, the top will then pivot out, and once you are able to pivot out, you can pull it out of the top hinge and then lift it up off of the bottom hinge. You can see myself and John Nolan with Reliance Security. We need a ladder and a fairly stocked tool bag to make sure you have all the proper tools so that you're not going back and forth to the van or the truck a bunch of times. And there we have it. We have it pulled, and it's now set down in a safe location. You can also see that we set that on the jacket. You do not want to have glass touching the tile. That is the bottom pivot bolt. So the bottom pivot hinge, and that is the top pivot hinge. You can see how they're mounted, and you can see how they're mounted into the ceiling and down into the bottom. Here is the bottom of the door with the Herculite style door and the Adams Wright style locking mechanism held in with some fancy Gorilla Tape. Now we get all that stuff out of the way. This particular setup was only accessible through the bottom of the door, and you can see that this is the screw that actually holds the lock in place, the locking mechanism itself.
Oh yeah, if you really want to create some problems for somebody. Red lock pack.
There we have it. Everything seems to be operating to some degree, and now this is how the set screw, you can see the set screw allows the Adams Wright mortise cylinder to thread in. When you're installing these or moving them around, sometimes you'll have to loosen some of the screws in order to get everything to line up properly. If it's not threading in or it's trying to cross thread continuously, then make sure that you undo the threads a little bit more, and that is our replacement unit that we're going to be replacing this with. So now once we put the replacement unit in, we'll then reinstall those screws and make sure that everything is nice and straight and level. Again, as you're reinstalling the thumb turn on the inside and the locking cylinder on the outside, make sure that everything is working correctly and lined up properly. Do not cross thread the cylinder. There's absolutely no reason.
Alright, so there's our bearing system down here, and this is how you can actually adjust the door. You can move it in, you can move it out via these two screws here. That stud that sticks out of the ground rides right on top of here, and then it has this little spring device to keep it in play. And then now we have the lock replaced here. Thumb turn on the inside, keyed on the outside, switch it over to IC so that we don't have to do this again, or we don't have to come in through the side either. So this is actually going to be your adjustment to tip the door down or bring it back up if it's dragging on the floor. You actually loosen this screw here and then the one on the other side, and there's a little slide there, and it slides back and forth. Oh! And bring that door back this way.
Here's a little better image and still picture of that hinge and moving system. Now we're going to pick the door back up using the glazer's mitts. Make sure again you have two people that are healthy and can actually physically move the door. You don't want to get stuck halfway trying to tilt the door up and realize somebody is not capable of lifting it properly. Now, looks like we're just making sure that everything is set underneath before we go ahead and put it back in place, setting it on the bottom pivot hinge. One of the things that I like to do is actually take a little piece of tape or a Sharpie and mark the door where that pivot is sitting before you pick it up, so that way you're not just kind of stabbing in the dark per se. If you have a mark marked out on there, then you can set that directly onto that particular location and you already have it marked out and there's no guesswork anymore. Here it looks like we've got the bottom hinge in place. We're just tightening down the top hinge, locking everything back into position, and making sure that nobody ever lets go of the door. That is the #1 rule. Until the door is 100% set, there's no letting go of the door. Here it is sitting back on the bottom pivot hinge and sitting on the top pivot hinge. There you can see those set screws again. And you can see the little mark that we had made that would mark out and indicate where that bottom pivot is supposed to sit. For more information, check out wayneslockshop.com. Have a great day.